Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take a monumental stack of sources, research, and expert analysis and, well, turn it into the knowledge you need without the hours of reading.
And today, we're immersing ourselves in a really fascinating world classical composition.
Specifically, a massive undertaking by a composer who set out to write a 12-part cycle. It's titled Year in the Life.
This is such a remarkable structural project. The composer wasn't just, assigning a simple mood to January and another to February.
Mhm.
They wanted to capture the emotional, the textural, the whole structural journey of an entire calendar year. And for us, the real shortcut is our source material.
Which is what, exactly?
It's a stack of highly detailed analytical feedback reports on nearly every single month. It basically gives us the composer's complete blueprint.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to understand how this composer managed to translate these ephemeral seasonal moods, the stillness of deep winter, the shock of spring, the oppressive August heat, into very specific musical elements.
Things like harmony, instrumentation, rhythm.
Exactly. But the bigger question is how these 12 individual pieces are structured to interact with each other, to build a genuine, cohesive annual narrative. Okay, let's unpack this journey, starting exactly where the cycle begins.
In the cold.
In the cold.
We begin with what we're calling winter's stasis. The music for January immediately establishes a very stark, highly introspective mood. The tempo is slow. It feels nearly frozen in time.
And what immediately jumps out from the sources is the instrumentation. It really signals the composer's thinking outside the traditional chamber box.
Oh, absolutely. We have a mixed wind quartet: clarinet, bassoon, horn, and a trumpet.
That is a highly unusual pairing.
It is. It gives you these bright colors mixed with really deep, resonant tones. It's perfectly chosen for creating that crystalline cold. The clarinet is the main melodic voice. It's angular, it's virtuosic.
But the bassoon, that's what caught my eye in the reports.
The bassoon is fascinating. It provides this solid, resonant, low foundation, grounding the piece in a very deep, sometimes tense register. It feels cold, but dense.
The moment you hear it, the music just refuses to settle. The reports confirm that even with a nominal key signature, the music is thoroughly chromatic. It's constantly shifting.
And that ambiguity is intentional. It's the musical metaphor for that indistinct, gray-skied landscape of January. It's dissonant, but purposefully so.
Right. The coldness isn't empty. It's filled with these complex emotional undercurrents.
Exactly. And structurally, January's conclusion is key. The piece ends on a dissonant dyad, a two-note chord that leaves you in this unresolved contemplation. The composer ensures you know the story isn't over.
The journey continues. So January establishes the cold, and that feeling leads us right into February, where it turns into a kind of quiet, palpable waiting tension.
The composer uses a completely different sonic canvas here. We move away from the piercing winds to a very unique pairing of two pianos, violin and viola.
Okay, so why two pianos? What does the composer gain from that specifically when trying to communicate waiting tension?
Well, it creates a huge dynamic range and this kind of shimmering, overlapping resonance. You get a dense, harmonic texture that feels deep and expansive, but it's still profoundly intimate.
So we're still in the deep cold.
Oh, yeah. The tempo's even slower, a largo, moving at a glacial pace, and the harmony is still complex, still chromatic.
It's stark. The sources point out that the whole atmosphere is captured by the opening sonority, this clash between a darker chord and a grounding note in the bass. It establishes a sense of poignant, almost painful longing right from the start.
And if January left us unresolved, February lets that tension hang even longer. The analysis suggested that to maximize this feeling of waiting, the composer instructed the performers to add a ritornando and a fermata.
A slowing down and a long hold.
Right, a sustained hold on the final harmony. That lets the sound decay naturally, almost like the world is holding its breath, absorbing that final deep mood of winter.
And that profound stillness leads us to, I think, the most crucial structural insight of the entire cycle, the great phase shift.
This is where the composer's thinking gets really clever. This is what distinguishes this cycle from, typical seasonal music. They weren't interested in slow, gradual transitions between seasons.
No, the reports say the composer sees the shifts from winter to spring and summer to autumn as these dramatic, almost violent phase shifts, a rupture that breaks the spell.
It's a brilliant way to frame seasonal psychology, isn't it? It's a phenomenological view. The deep cold shatters when spring arrives.
Or the heat wave finally breaks. They aren't smooth transitions, they're sharp reversals, almost like a structural reboot.
Precisely. But the other transitions, spring to summer or autumn to winter, those are seen as smooth continuations, slow fades, not ruptures. And March is where the first rupture happens.
March just shatters February stasis.
Uh-huh.
And it has a title that's a total paradox, March in Waltz Time.
Right. An unconventional 34-meter for a march. It feels less like a military procession and more like the steady, deliberate march of time, or maybe a weary journey that's finally finding its footing.
And the instrumentation is so intimate, signaling a fresh start. Piano and classical guitar.
The piano provides that steady waltz rhythm, the anchor. But the classical guitar, this is the new life. It provides these fluid, decorative arpeggios, like swirling thoughts or the wind just beginning to stir.
And here's where the rupture really happens, in the harmony. Part A is restless, centered around a G major feel. But then the transformative moment comes in Part B, a bold, almost jarring harmonic shift,
A tritone modulation.
which is a massive harmonic leap. For anyone trying to picture that, it isn't just a subtle key change.
No, it's the most disruptive, distant key shift possible. It's musically designed to feel like you've traveled the farthest distance in the shortest amount of time.
And the piece ends decisively in that new key, D-flat major. It tells you the journey wasn't cyclical, it was a true, successful transformation. We've arrived at spring.
And that arrival defines the months that follow. After that breakthrough, April takes a more tentative step. The sources describe it as introspective, meditative, a bit uncertain.
Not fully bloomed yet.
Exactly. And the instrumentation for April is so telling of that hesitation. Flute, piano, cello, horn, and voice.
But the voice doesn't sing text. It acts more like a sustained harmonic pad, right?
That's a key detail. The voice isn't telling a story yet, it's just holding a color. It provides a human, warm element, but it's static. It signifies that lingering uncertainty, the spring still waiting for true commitment before it bursts into action.
And then May arrives, shifting immediately to bright sunlight, open sky, and vastness. The composer's guiding image was a little house on a prairie.
The contrast to the complexity of January and February is immediate. The harmonic language in May is remarkably diatonic and clear, mostly C major. It's a deliberate choice, contrasting sharply with the chromatic ambiguity of the colder months. It's just transparent and pure.
And the texture enhances that feeling of openness. The oboe has these repetitive eighth note passages that create a rippling, breeze-like quality.
And the piano adds sparkle and movement. It's a complete, undeniable reversal of winter stasis.
Which leads us to our first major continuation in the cycle. We move smoothly from that bursting energy of spring into summer's duration.
Right, where the composer establishes a different kind of stasis. Heat and enduring pressure.
June is designed as the ultimate moment of stasis, but the movement within it is frictionless. The guiding image was punting.
The sense of being carried rather than propelled. The music inhabits the present tense without memory or expectation. It just is.
The quiet luxury of not needing to row.
It's poised. Summer is present without yet tipping into excess. The composer uses these sustained chords and very slow harmonic rhythms to achieve that feeling of unforced continuity.
But then the composer lets adjacent months argue with each other, especially in what we're calling the noir diptych of July and August.
July is treated as 40s urban noir, sultry but still enjoyable heat. The harmonies are these extended sonorities that just hang in the air, but they don't choke you.
They feel humid, not oppressive.
Exactly. The music uses silence and space, suggesting open windows at night. The city still breathes heavily, but it breathes.
Then August hits, and the sources reveal this really powerful compositional decision. August is the breaking point. The composer uses nearly the same orchestration,
Alto sax, piano, classical guitar.
which ensures that the continuity itself becomes the problem.
It's such sophisticated storytelling. It's not new heat. It's too much of the same heat. What was sultry in July becomes sticky, persistent, and adversarial in August. It leads to a sense of claustrophobia.
Resentment, even.
Absolutely. The alto sax is the passionate melodic voice, while the piano creates this shimmering, atmospheric, texture-like heat haze rising off the pavement.
So the familiar sounds from July now create tension simply because they won't stop. And the piece just fades away like a memory receding after an endless, exhausting day.
And that deep exhaustion leads us directly to the second great phase shift of the cycle, the pivot into autumn, where the spell has to be broken again.
September is where we feel that rupture from August's oppressive weight. The mood shifts immediately to reflective, slightly melancholic, and wistful.
That melancholy sweetness of early autumn. The contrast is deliberately achieved through a change in texture and tempo. We get a slower larghetto pace and a return to transparent textures, diatonic sweetness, moving away from August's crushing chromatic tension.
The harp's entrance early on is a very clear signal of that.
A shimmering signal that the emotional world has turned a corner. But just like January, September doesn't offer full resolution. It ends on an unresolved harmony, deliberately leaving you hanging.
Preparing us for the shift toward the more mischievous, atmospheric month that follows.
October, which acts as a crucial bridge month, and this is where we see the composer's craft reach its peak. The piece has a haunting, contemplative quality with a sparse texture and a kind of hypnotic minimalism.
Dominated by that steady, slow rhythm in the wordless chorus, the vocalizers.
And this month perfectly illustrates that key structural idea we uncovered. The composer's goal of moving their focus from horizontal, that is, melody-driven, narrative music, to vertical, music focused on harmony and timbre.
They call it trying to compose on a 45-degree angle.
Exactly. It's the synthesis of both. You're not just following a story, you're dwelling in a moment. Because October, an equinox month, naturally wants to rush forward toward winter, the composer forces it to linger. They make the voice a pure, timeless instrument, drawing your ear away from melody and toward pure harmonic color.
So the composer is deliberately making October feel less like a rushing narrative and more like a resonant, complex painting. A momentary pause before the final, undeniable descent into winter.
And that pause is brief. We are structurally pushed toward the deep cold again in November. The guiding image here is instantly memorable: a deep, dark wood.
Like the opera Hansel and Gretel.
Exactly like that.
Mhm.
And the sources detail how the instrumentation creates this shadowy atmosphere. We have a quartet of tenor sax, oboe, horn, and cello.
A very warm, woody color. Perfect for a forest.
And to evoke that feeling of being lost or disoriented, the composer uses heavy applications of sharp accidentals, creating harmonic ambiguity. There's no clear, safe tonal home to anchor to. It reinforces that fairy tale sense of uncertainty as the light fades.
And finally, we arrive at December, the end of the cycle. This represents the second great continuation, a smooth intensification from November's descent.
December is quintessentially wintry, contemplative, characterized by suspension and stillness. The tempo is controlled, and the score uses extensive sustained notes across the whole ensemble.
Piano, soprano, and tenor voices, violins, and cellos.
And the voices are treated almost entirely instrumentally, floating above the texture. They add a fluid, human element to an otherwise cold soundscape. The harmony is complex, chromatic, constantly shifting. It suggests the complex emotions of the year's end, facing uncertainty.
And structurally, it does not resolve.
No. Just like January and September, the piece ends on a beautifully sustained and unresolved chord, a B, G sharp, and another B. This lack of finality is essential. It's the perfect conclusion for December, which is an end that immediately precedes a new beginning.
The start of January and the new cycle. So if we look back the entire year, what does this all mean for the fundamental architecture of the work?
It means the composer has created this elegant, long-form structure. It's built on 4 3-month seasonal suites, and the entire cycle builds psychological tension until a phase shift, a moment of rupture, breaks the momentum.
February to March and August to September.
Right. And the other two major transitions, May to June and November to December, are gentle, smooth continuations that just intensify the established mood.
The genius is that the structure follows this phenomenological insight. The psychological spell breaks only at the points that mark the true reversal of a trend, the end of deep colds and the end of deep heat. The rest is just intensification. It's beautiful structural thinking.
It proves that seasonal narratives can be built not just by assigning moods, but by defining how adjacent months argue with each other, specifically by controlling that compositional vector, whether the music is moving forward or just dwelling in a texture.
All based on whether the season is perceived as a break or a continuation.
Hey.
It really makes you rethink your own experience of time. We've seen that the composer sees these key seasonal transitions as moments where the psychological rate of becoming changes sign the moment the trajectory reverses. If your life were a piece of music defined by movement and stability and tempo, which phases would be your slow, settled continuations?
And which would be the sudden, explosive breaks? Because those breaks are the necessary inflection points that change the direction of the trend itself. What composition would you need to write? What sudden harmonic shift or change in tempo to force that phase shift in your own life? That's something worth thinking about.
Until the next deep dive. See you then.